morning and welcome to a new week of devotions from the team at Andover Baptist Church. We produce these every weekday from Monday to Friday. They go live at 8 o'clock in the morning so you can begin your day with God. If you haven't checked out any of the previous 3 weeks of devotions that we've been doing, can I really encourage you to do that, because there's some great stuff there and they're all available on our YouTube channel for you to go and take a look at. This week we're going to look at a single event from the life of Jesus and 5 different things that we can take from it. Encouragements, lessons to learn, pointers to the nature and character of God. It's an event that may be familiar to us even if we aren't regular church people. Maybe we've heard about the time Jesus and one of his friends Peter walked on water. Whether you know the story or not, don't worry. We're going to remind ourselves of the story, and each day we're going to pick on a piece of it to drill down into in more detail. I'm going to start by reading the story from Matthew's account of Jesus' life in the New Testament, and it's in chapter 14 verses 22 to 33, and it goes like this. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves, because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus said to them, "Take courage. It is I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." 3 years ago, we were on holiday near Ullswater as a family, and we decided to hire a couple of canoes and head out onto the lake. It was great and so easy to begin with. We paddled with little effort a fair way down the lake. Then it was time to turn round, and as we started to turn, I realised why it had been so easy. Whilst on land, it hardly felt like there were any wind at all, but in the middle of the lake it was really strong, and it had been at our backs pushing us down the lake. And as we turned and the boat was sideways onto the wind, suddenly we knew why it had been so easy, because the wind was strong and it continued to push us. And as we were going sideways on, we were pushed closer and closer to a little rocky island in the middle of the lake. It was a really scary moment, and it took all of our effort to turn the canoe. And then we had to paddle into the wind. And that was really hard work too, and it felt like a lot further to get back than it had to get down the lake. Now we're told in verses 23 and 24 of this story that the disciples were in the boat. Jesus wasn't with them, and the boat was in the middle of the lake, and it was being buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. It was hard work, and whether they were sailing or rowing, either way it would have been really tough. No engines in those days. Rowing into the waves or into the wind, or trying to tack from side to side if they were using a sail, it would have been a horrific struggle. Now life feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? There might not necessarily be awful things going on, but it's just a struggle. And I suspect many of us watching this are experiencing this now. And the language of rowing into the wind perfectly describes what it feels like, or has felt like, or will feel like at some point in our lives. And maybe when we're in that moment, it doesn't feel like Jesus is around, like he wasn't around at this moment for the disciples. But I want you to take heart today, because as we shall discover, Jesus was on the way. Jesus is on the way, and something amazing is about to happen. We can have a hope when life feels like we're rowing into the wind, that Jesus is on the way, that something amazing may already be happening or about to take place if we just open our eyes to look for it and to see it. Amazing things happening even in the midst of our current circumstances. I mean, even now, as I record this, we're in the middle of the coronavirus outbreak. Even now, we're seeing some extraordinary things happening that bring us hope. The story has been going around in the news just this week of Captain Tom Moore, the 99-year-old army veteran, who at the time of recording this had raised over £21 million for the NHS by walking around his garden. There is hope. And I hope that you'll join me tomorrow when we find out what happens when Jesus is on the way. Today's song is a song of hope, that Jesus is on the way, that he is with us, even though we might not see him right now. It's called I Am Not Alone by the fabulous Carrie Job. It contains these great lyrics. I am not alone. You will go before me. You will never leave me. In the midst of deep sorrow, the dark of night will not overtake me. I am pressing into you. Let's pray before we listen to the song. Lord God, thank you that even though life sometimes feels like we are rowing into the wind, and maybe feels like that for us now, hope is on the way. Jesus is on the way. Help us to have eyes open to see where you and he are at work. Help us to see amazing things all around us that bring us hope and joy, even when life feels like hard work. Remind us that we are not alone, that you are with us. And remind us of the amazing things that can happen when we look to you, when you are on the way. Amen.